G'day Bomber fans, it is getting closer to draft time, so I'm going to start pumping out these draft related videos weekly now until draft night, probably more often than that because I actually feel like I know more about the draft than other areas of footy, so you guys can hear me yap on for a good reason for once. I follow it pretty closely, so today I'm just going to highlight the guys we could potentially welcome into the club with pick 8. I'll show you a lot the best 20 draftees in a second, but today I will be talking about 9 in particular that we could have the chance of taking with our first pick in the upcoming draft. So pretty much this is just me telling you guys who you should be keeping an eye on in the news and on YouTube for highlights. This is an excellent draft, by the way. It's so much better than last year and the year before that, so we want to be involved as a club. Let's take a quick look at the 20 best players. Alrighty, so here is my current power ranking. I won't talk about all of these guys now. This is just for you guys to look at and jot down names if you want. A few things before I get into the actual heart of the video, which is really a mini player profile for potential pick 8 options. Starting with that, pick 8, we do currently have it, but on the night we will not. Pick 8 will inevitably slide down to pick 9 at the very least, more likely pick 10 and possibly even pick 11. So we have a couple of highly rated prospects in Levi Ashcroft and Leonardo Lombard who will probably be bidded on before us, meaning we slide down to pick 10 after those bids are matched. But there's also a chance St Kilda get band 1 compensation if Josh Battle's contract is large enough. That would ensure the Saints actually get hold of pick 8 before the draft instead of us. So there's every chance in the world that pick 8 turns into pick 11 on the night. Real quick, a little bit about the draft. It's impossible to pick a best player. I have about 5 that I think could be right up there, 6 or 7 even. I won't talk about a lot of those guys in this video just because they're not really going to matter to us. So if you want to hear about anyone there in that top 5, bad luck unfortunately. I'll talk about them later. It is also a deep draft. It bats really deep, and there are plenty that will be unlucky not to receive an AFL list spot. Even the first round bats deep. Joe Berry at 20. There are plenty that think he is a better small forward than Isaac Kako, and that's not a hot take at all. I've struggled to split these two myself at times. Now, I'm not going to be talking about him or the top 5 or the bottom 5 of this 20, aside from Jobe Shanahan because he's topical. I'll also not be talking about Leonardo Lombard, Levi Ashcroft, or Isaac Kako today. They're tied to clubs. There are 9 that I'll talk about, and I'll talk about them right now. Alright, the odds of Harvey Langford slipping to us are very slim, but I will talk about him anyway, just in case. Langford is a really special blend of player. He's kind of that Cripps Bontempelli-sized midfielder who can drift forward to be a marking target himself. He's not perfect in any one area, but he's become rounded enough to ensure his size is now more than just a little trademark you say when describing a player. Being a 190cm midfielder is great and all, but being one who is so nice to watch on the outside and so smart with his aerial positioning is something else. And that's his point of difference, I guess, the fact that he has attributes that not only enhance his physical traits, but also set him apart outside of them. He has a booming left boot. He can be utilised in a number of different roles. This is genuinely the player we have needed for so long at Essendon, and it's why I'm talking about him, even though he won't be available. I think if we could pick one player in this draft to get on a needs basis, it would probably be Harvey Langford. Unfortunately, though, it's so unlikely we will have a chance at him. Some think he's going to be gone before pick 5, and those who don't rarely have him past pick 10. I do think, though, if there was one player for us to trade forwards for, it would be Harvey Langford. Luke Trainor is pretty much just Jordan Ridley. That's who he's been compared to all year. He's an intercepting key defender. He's a bit smaller in size, but smart enough with his awareness for that to not really be an issue. He reads the ball better than any defender I've seen in the draft in years, I reckon. The last I can remember getting this level of acclaim is Josh Gibcus, who would be talked about more if he wasn't injured all the time. But Trainor is just an exceptional player and one who improves any team he's in straight away when he plays there. His footy IQ is unmatched, his ball skills are elite, he has clean hands in the air. We already have Ridley, but if Trainor was to be available for our first pick somehow, we would have to at least consider taking him. He's too good to pass on. Really, really highly rated player. Reid is an interesting one, and also from here, I think this is the range where we could be looking at guys that could potentially slide, like Reid. This is a classy midfielder who isn't really the type of player that Essendon needs. We have quite a few mids of his build and stature, so part of me wants him to be taken early because so we don't have the tough task of deciding to choose him or not. But he's very good. You got to consider taking him if he's available. That's the issue. I know we have guys like him in Caldwell and Parrish, those in and out contest mids that make time move a bit slower around them with their slow hands and their classy hands. But Reid himself is so hyped and could be something really special in a good system. He's a bit skinny and doesn't really have those eye-catching physical traits. He isn't strong, he isn't lightning quick, but he is a great user, a great thinker, and a guy that could grow into a midfield role in 3 to 4 years. The question is, if Essendon's available, do we take him? I think you guys, if you saw him play, you would understand why I'm a tad hesitant despite loving the way he looks, just because he plays pretty similar footy to a few of our guys already. If we were to offload a few of our mids, I would understand this decision more, but I do think he's gone earlier anyway. Sam Lalor is a player we definitely could take if available, another midfielder, not as eye-catching as Reid, but this is that big defensive back of a stoppage body that we've been crying out for since Watson retired. He's been getting comparisons to Dusty. I don't see it as much, but I kind of get why that is. He's a brute. He loves a fend off. He's kind of this tall, strong midfielder who loves to tackle. His grunt at stoppages is massive. This is a coach's dream right here. He really does make midfield systems better just from his attacking and defensive blend. He isn't a great user. Some of you guys will torch him for his kicking, but I think the pros outweigh the cons. He's good in the air as well, not just because of his size. I know we often talk about guys being good in the air, or midfielders, because they're taller, but he genuinely looked good when playing forward of the ball. He times his leads really well, so he can even potentially play as a third key forward, resting at times if it comes to that, or maybe he learns how to play defense. The point is, this is a guy who's taken on new roles and challenges and looked effortless in succeeding with them. I think if I had to pick a guy to draft that would make you guys the happiest, I'd probably go here. I reckon there are better players, but just for his attack on the ball, his mindset, his physical mindset, the fact he gives us something we haven't had in years in that big body, it's a bit like Langford, who I spoke of at the start, but a lot more achievable. There is a slim chance he is available for our pick, and if he is, we take him. Allan. Now, one of you guys commented on a recent video, I think it was Will, sorry if I'm wrong, but you said that the club would not be going for interstate players to avoid go-home issues, and that is a reasonable approach for a Victorian club. There's talent all over Victoria, more talent than any other states, but I wouldn't mind Essendon bringing in someone like Allan. He's West Aussie, he's captained his state, so he's a great leader. I talked before about players playing in new roles, which is always hard in a draft season. You're potentially sacrificing your draft position to try a new position. Let's just rattle off some of Allan's adventures. He started as a key defender, then played general defence, and that helps when you're malleable, size of 190 with muscle. He can play tall, he can play small. I think that from there he moved to a wing, which then became permanent midfield minutes. He was even thrown forward, and genuinely, after 5 positions, I still don't know where he's best at. This is a guy you can draft without knowing where he'll be in 5 years. And maybe that's not really what Essendon needs right now. Maybe that's more of a project for a team like North Melbourne who can trial and error when holes arise. But this is a pretty talented kid with serious leadership capabilities. He's done nothing but show promise this year. And in case you're wondering, he's pretty hard at it as well. He's a tough nut. So before you talk about project players like Nick Cox, this is certainly not one of them. He's ready-made. He's full of muscle. I can see him making his debut in round 1. All right, switching up the order to talk about key forwards. We're going to start with Jobe Shanahan because we are familiar with him. You guys will be knowing lots about him already. So he's another one who could be ready-made. He showed that with his VFL performances for Essendon. He played with us in the VFL. He was outdoing Peter Wright, and to be fair, he was warranting less attention, but the fact he kicked bags in the reserves in a draft year, that's a massive tick. He's a strong mark, he's a smart lead. He's not quick or athletic. He probably doesn't have too much to his game outside of his marking ability and conversion, and his IQ, I guess. So he would act as that stay-at-home key forward. You can't really mould his game around too much to span into other areas, and that's something I worry about a tad, but he has shown plenty as that marking target. He finds space really well. He creates distance between himself and his direct opponent with ease, so a lot of the time it looks like he's just getting uncontested marks inside 50, but that's down to hard work and footy smarts. I really like Shanahan. I think he's a very good forward. I talked about Logan Morris this time last year a lot, before I thought we would have access to Caddy, but Shanahan and Logan Morris have a little bit of similarities between them that I notice here and there, and Logan Morris looks good for Brisbane. I know plenty will tune in to hear about Shanahan. He gets a tick from me, but there are certainly better players in this video that'll probably be available as well for our first pick. New South Wales born as well, by the way, so he could be the subject of trade news every time he's out of contract. Alrighty, the other key forward is Harry Armstrong. Now, I'm going to start by saying I think I prefer Armstrong for the future. Keyword think, by the way. I like both these guys. I think they're pretty close in quality. I've tossed up both being ahead of the other quite a bit. But right now, I'm just looking at Armstrong's traits, and they excite me a little bit more. So he isn't as strong right now. He's a tad leaner, and he's not as proven against big bodies like Shanahan is, but he's overcome some injury worries and health worries to prove to us all that he's a genuine forward for the future. He's a goal-kicking machine. He's kicked a bag of 5 in the thriller against Vic Country. I think he was actually the leading goal scorer at Champs, playing 3 games out of 4. His contested marking is great. He's really accurate in front of goals, more accurate than half our list already. But it's his work rate around the ground that I love. He pushes high up the field to lend a hand as that link in the chain, kind of like what Caddy and Jones can do. And I know you guys will say we currently have players like that, but Armstrong can be either. He can sit at home, kick bags of 5, obviously not in the AFL, or he can work around the ground. I just think there is so much to his game to get excited about right now, and he's a teammate of Isaac Kako, so he knows how to play with Kako in the forward line. They know each other, they know how each other work. Aside from any potential sliders, this is a guy I could definitely see Essendon taking. I think Caddy would take pressure off him as well. Drafting 2 top 10 key forwards is a risk in consecutive years, but I do think Armstrong and Caddy could work together pretty well despite neither being that tall or big right now. It's obviously one for the future, but if you ask me right now who I would want out of Shanahan and Armstrong, it would be Armstrong just. Alright, defenders. Tobie Travaglia is a rebound defender. He's great on the ground, really silky mover with and without the footy. He is quick, he is athletic, he's shown he can play at a high level. He ran out for Carlton's VFL team and looked good. He's only a bit under 190 centimetres, so even though he's a general defender, he can lend a hand like Redmond does against bigger bodies. He's a bit like Redmond in some ways. He defends well and rebounds better. You just like the ball in his hands, not because he's a terrific kick. He's good by foot, but not amazing. I just like his attacking mindset. He loves to run, he loves to carry. He can play wing a bit, not locked down to his defensive role. I think he kicked a couple of goals for Carlton's VFL team in one game, if I'm not mistaken. So there's plenty to like. He's just risen the rankings so much lately. I could see him being a guy who bolts in ahead of us, allowing someone else to slide, but you wouldn't mind him on the list either. I feel like he's someone who really rises to the moment. I don't even think I've spoken about his marking yet. This guy's 187 centimetres or around that, but he can genuinely impact in the air offensively. He can be an intercept marker. So he is, apart from Trainor, in my opinion, the most rounded defender in the draft. Alix Tauru is the last guy I'll touch on, just because I feel like he's going to rise most people's rankings a lot in the coming weeks. He'll be talked about more and more. Key defender, despite only being a few centimetres taller than Travaglia. He's 191, I think. Really great vertical leap, though, so he to me is that third key, kind of like Ridley or Sicily or someone. He tends to drift into other contests to intercept. He's an excellent interceptor, by the way. Terrific sticky hands. He's one that you notice yourself watching a bit because of that Targaryen-like blonde hair. You can see his running patterns pretty easily, even watching on a screen. But he's going to be a good player. He recently went up forward in a final in the Talent League and was a great marking target, kicked a few goals. So he's another one not locked down to one role. I'm only going to touch on him a tad because I've yapped on a lot this video, but I keep an eye on Tauru as well. And that is that. Those are the guys I think we could be looking at for pick 8. There are lots of great, talented players in this draft. Lots to get excited about. Heaps going on. I'll cover it all. Cheers for watching. Let me know who you liked the most out of these guys below. Let me know if I missed anyone that you would like to see talked about next video. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.